Lots of us are watching what's happening in Washington and around the country. Statues of all sorts of famous Americans, and some even non-Americans, famous people around the country being toppled, being pulled over by protesters. It's a combination of Black Lives Matter, BLM, and Antifa, and just general rioters. Destruction, desecration of these statues. And there was an incident outside of the White House yesterday, and President Trump chose to take to the cameras this morning as he was leaving the White House. He did a quick interview, as he often does now, leaving the White House, kind of talking to the press in the driveway of the White House about where he's headed in Arizona. He's headed to talk there about the wall and to some young Americans, but he's also addressed in this morning presser what they did last night in response to vandals destroying statues in Lafayette Park right across from the White House. Here is Donald Trump.
So we're going to Arizona. We're celebrating. We have over 200 miles of wall built. It's been incredible. Our numbers on the border, as you know, are at just about a record-breaking low. People are not being able to cross the border. The wall has helped because we have more than 200. We have about 212 miles up of wall. So that's good. And we're going to be doing a number of other things. We're going to be making a speech to young people in Arizona. And we'll be meeting with some of the Arizona officials to talk about their border and how strong it's become. It's become very strong. Last night we stopped an attack on a great monument, the monument of Andrew Jackson in Lafayette Park. And I just want to thank law enforcement. They did a great job. We were working very closely with the White House Secret Service and some of our executives. It was really, they did a great job. They stopped it cold. Numerous people are in jail and going to jail today. People are already there, but we're looking at long-term sentences under the Act. We have a very specific Monuments Act, and we are looking at long-term jail sentences for these vandals and these hoodlums and these anarchists and agitators, and call them whatever you want. Some people don't like that language, but that's what they are. They're bad people. They don't love our country, and they're not taking down our monuments. I just want to make that clear.
God bless Donald Trump. That little press conference alone is a great example of why Americans got behind Donald Trump in 2016 and why they're more so behind him today. What we're watching in America, the alleged provocation of these riots around the country, the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis at the hands of a police officer, has nothing to do with what we're watching in this country. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the extent of the unbelievable pulling down of statues. First of all, just examples so crazy. To start with, for example, there was pulling down the statue of George Washington, of course, of Thomas Jefferson, but Ulysses S Grant. Now, if you think, I know that name from history, Ulysses S Grant was actually the leader, the person who led the Northern forces in the Civil War, who brought about the end of slavery, the end of the Civil War, the end of slavery. He was a hero. His statue pulled down because before the war started, the attackers, the mobsters, that he owned one slave. Whether he did or didn't, the man fought for the Union and to end slavery. Francis Scott Key, the person who wrote our national anthem. Junipero Serra, a Catholic priest who brought Catholicism north from Mexico into what we now call California. We're talking about statues being torn down. Obviously, you talk about Christopher Columbus. We're tearing down statues of America's history. And even though these statues are precious, many irreplaceable, many have nothing to do with the current controversy in America or with past slavery, there is simply a mob taking over various portions of this country. Many Americans watching this and waiting for, where are the police? Where is someone in authority to denounce this, to condemn it, to stop them, to take charge? In fact, even though President Trump, in the clip we just heard, made reference to Lafayette Park, just a couple of days ago, other things happening in Lafayette Park, including another attack on that same church that was lit on fire by the protesters about a week ago. there was commentary by various people saying, why aren't we standing up? Why is President Trump letting this happen? And so you had people in Washington, D.C. asking the mayor, why aren't you sending your police over? Why aren't they protecting this? And the mayor and the mayor's office said, it's actually not our job. It's not in our jurisdiction. It's federal land. It's federal property. And so you have to have the park police. Well, thank goodness for Donald Trump standing up. Just the beginning of the message from him this morning. We are going to fight back. We're going to stop this. But I want to get to the real crux of this, which isn't just the destruction of these precious, historic, often irreplaceable statues. It is the message to the people behind this destruction. You have to understand the people destroying these statues, the people painting all sorts of horrific things on statues of Christopher Columbus and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all sorts of American historic figures, are not motivated by trying to help America, save America, enlighten America, lift America. These people are profoundly and deeply hateful of America. These are people who simply hate the very idea of America. These are Marxists who have been waiting in the weeds, waiting for provocation, waiting for the signal. Now's the time. Go ahead and attack America. And one reason you can tell that is true is because nothing that they're doing involves a demand. It's not like saying, we're going to protest until we get this change, this change, this change. There are no demands except the vague, we want justice. We want fairness, or something you can't respond to. These people are about the destruction of America. This is truly the beginning of a Marxist revolution in this country and around the world. And I'll tell you a little tip around the world before I come back to this story about what's happening in America. So in Germany, in the country of Germany, which has plenty of history itself, where everyone is aware of, but in the country of Germany, they recently, in a small town, put up a new statue erected in a town in Germany to Lenin, Vladimir Lenin, the Russian who gave rise eventually to the Russian Revolution, to the slaughter of millions of Russian people, to the evil of communism. This is the guy who kicked that off in Russia. And the commentary, even more dangerous than the fact that who would make a statue to Lenin, although there is a statue to Lenin still standing in Washington state in America, somehow these people who are so upset about America and destroying our property are not bothering with a Lenin statue in Washington. I think it's in Olympia, Washington. But in Germany, the commentary around this Lenin statue, was to talk about the greatness of ideas, the great anti-capitalist, the great person who freed the people, the masses, from the evil of capitalism. People, this is a Marxist concept around this world. It is ongoing. So back to America, I want to commend President Trump, number one, saying, we're going to take charge, we're going to stop this. And I also want to say, in the course of what we're watching in this country, it is a real great signal for us to understand, why is it the police are afraid to act? Why do police, in most cases, in this toppling of monuments around this country by mobs, why do police stand there? And I want to set up for you what we're going to talk about the rest of the show, and that is this. The left in this country, the anti-American radical left, which has now overtaken the Democrat Party, but the socialist, Marxist, anti-American radical left has been working away at disintegrating, dissolving, eviscerating, tainting the love of America among the American people. The left has been working for decades in a variety of ways to eviscerate the concept in the American consciousness of the goodness of America, the extraordinary ideas of our founding, the promise of America, the opportunity in America for people of every race, ethnicity, national origin to come here and have a life of prosperity and freedom. The left has been working for decades to destroy America. And so what you're seeing now, the destruction of monuments, the notice is up at Chaz or CHOP, whatever you want to call it, in San Francisco, that has in Seattle, that has the signs, end capitalism, capitalism, inherently racist, police, inherently racist. You have the left has been working away at destroying love of America, belief in the American ideas, the valuing of America in all sorts of ways. It starts with our public education system. For decades, because we were asleep at the wheel in this country, we had leftists invading the curricula from kindergarten through 12th grade, in colleges, in grad schools around this country. So you had leftism denigrating the idea of America, introducing America as a country with a deeply horrible, horrible history, horrible identity, horrible place in the world. You had evisceration of the love of America. You're making its way through the school system. So now we have decades of people raised in that who were now surprised they don't love America. They've been taught to hate America since kindergarten. Of course they do, because we haven't been in charge of our school system. But the concept about the attack on these statues is not just targeted at the particular figure depicted in the statue. It's not really just hatred of George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or Christopher Columbus or Junipero Serra or all the other people whose statues are being destroyed. It's hatred of America. You have to start to get that idea. These people are not just trying to correct past wrongs. They are not just working to make sure we can resurrect a better America. We make a better America with less racism. This is not their mission. Their mission is to attack the idea of America. So in addition to the fact the education system has brought about hatred of America, failure to respect America, failure to love America, we've also had the radical left. We talked about it yesterday on this show. If you didn't watch the show, you should go back and look at it. We had the Communist Party in America starting in 1920, identifying the idea that they couldn't sell communism to an American society that loved our freedom, loved our free markets, loved entrepreneurship, loved the opportunity freedom and capitalism give people. So the Communist Party back in the 1920s was saying in America, the only way to get America divided, to bring them on board with Marxism, is to introduce race, to accuse America of being a deeply racist country, to divide America by race. This is a tactic by leftists in this country, tactic by Marxists, tactic by communists and socialists, divide America, accuse America of being a deeply racist country. This was thought up in the 1920s. We mentioned yesterday on the show there was a brilliant book written by a guy named Manning Johnson, a black American who joined the Communist Party in the 1930s and 40s, loved the idea of communism, thought he was joining the Communist Party to stand up for black Americans and bring justice to black Americans. And after remaining in the Communist Party for wherever it was, 20 years or so, he finally realized the Communist Party was using him, using race, using false accusations of racism to undermine the existence of America and to make America feel divided, suspicious, and hateful of each other. So this gentleman's name was Manning Johnson. He left the Communist Party, wrote the book, Color, Communism, and Common Sense, and tried to tell America the rest of his life, tried to tell America, understand, communism will destroy America. It will destroy everything good, destroy the very fabric of this country. He tried to bring that out at his time and to point out the leftists in his time, the communists, were using race to divide America, to destroy America. It's the same thing happening today. You have to understand this. The rioters, the protesters, the looters, the people who are committing vandalism, they do not care one iota about race relations in this country. They do not care at all about uplifting the plight of low-income black Americans. They do not care about that. They care about destroying America. They're using race as an issue, as a divider of our people. I want to share a couple other images I sent to Matt the Wonderful. One is just, I don't have the numbers Matt I sent, but one has a picture of a statue that's been pulled down. It says, rioters defaced and toppled the George Washington. Here you go. Rioters defaced and toppled the George Washington statue in Portland, Oregon. This is what I was referring to a moment ago. Meanwhile, the statue of murderous tyrant Vladimir Lenin still up in Seattle, Washington. Somehow it doesn't matter to them. A person who brought about the murder of millions of people in this world, he's fine. No problem with him. Junipero Serra, Francis Scott Key, George Washington, they got to go. The rioters are, and I wouldn't call them, they are rioters, they are anarchists, whatever word you want to use. These are not people with a mission to solve any problems in America. They're not trying to solve problems. They are trying to create division. They are trying to bring the end of the destruction of America. So this We're around to this. I know it's a very long first five, but I want to get the point. We're at a very, very crucial point in America. We're at a turning point. We are at a vital time in America. The left is attempting to instill mob rule. Whether it's Washington, San Francisco, San Diego, all over this country, it's a mob mentality. They are not reasoning. They're not making demands. They are not laying out what we want, but because what they want is the destruction of the very concept of America, a country rooted in liberty. That is their mission. That is their mission, to simply destroy America. And I wanted to share a couple of things in this first five. In fact, a big point in this first five I want to get to. Beside the fact, I should point out, the mob rule is happening. So either we have people like the police standing back because they don't want to they're a little bit afraid to get involved in the destruction of statues. They're afraid to have the next confrontation between an officer and a citizen where the police can later be accused of brutality or unfairness. We have the left has bullied the police into fear of even handling a riot. The police are afraid to make arrests, afraid to be the next police officer accused. So the bullying of the left has resulted in police afraid to do their jobs, American citizens afraid to speak up, and we have government officials of all kinds. I Googled, city vote to remove statues or something like that. I mean, I could list city after city after city. The bullying mob of the left has gotten all sorts of leaders in cities around this country to agree to voluntarily take down statues so that the mob doesn't come and take them down anyway. So we have surrender to the mob demands to remove any reference to anything from the Confederacy. And people, by the way, I'm not a Southerner. I grew up in New York. I'm not a big defender of the Confederacy or these statues. I'm getting at the idea the statue removal is not being made, the demands to remove statues are not being made because people want to have a more peaceful and loving country. That has nothing to do with the demands by these people. It's everything to do with the chipping away at the concept of America. So whether you have the mob taking down statues or you have city and county and state officials surrendering because the mob is bullying them, and if you won't, the mob saying to city officials, if you won't take down the following statues that we demand, we're going to come after you next. Where you're going to be the next racist with headlines all over the country. You're going to be the next one we attack. So the mob rule is starting to take hold in this country. Whether we permit statues to be just destroyed by protesters, or we have city and county officials throwing up their hands saying, sure, whatever you tell us to do what we want. So you have people surrendering all sorts of statues. But the last piece I want to hit today, that's just in this first five, which is way longer than five, I want to make this point about another demand happening. And if you doubt what I'm saying, if you think there is legitimacy at all to the demands to take down these statues because we're just trying to get rid of symbols of the Confederacy, symbols of the era of slavery, which obviously in America, since the end of the Civil War, school students have learned since that time that America has a history of slavery, that we had slavery in the South, that we fought a civil war, that slavery ended, that we have made many, many strides forward since the time of ending slavery. And then we had the civil rights movements. It's not like we haven't taught our students, our people in this country, that slavery was wrong. We have taught that, and we still teach it. But the tearing down of statues is not about punishing the people. It's not about punishing the people in the statues, and it's not being done because America otherwise was holding up slavery as a great thing. America has taught its students since the end of the Civil War in 1865 that slavery was wrong. We fought a war to end it. We ended it, and we stand by and we abhor slavery. We've taught this for over 100 years. Over 150 years we've taught this. And yet you have people determined to tear down these statues. What they're trying to do is erase all symbols of American history, the American identity, America's past. This is what totalitarian Marxist types people do around the world. It's the same thing that the Taliban did around the world when they had their chance. The Taliban in Afghanistan tore down statues of anything that wasn't honored in their faith of Islam. The idea of tearing down statues is a centuries, millennia-old tactic to attack the identity and the meaning of a culture. It is not about trying to erase the horrible history of our Confederacy of slavery. It was a horrible history. We teach it, we tell it, but the reason these people are doing this today is not because they're really, really motivated by the idea that they're going to stand up and stand against slavery. It's been long over. It is to destroy the identity of America, the history of America, the very culture and fabric of our country. It is an evil attack on America. And one last thing if you doubt this, I want to tell you one last thing. So one of the main leaders of Black Lives Matter movement, a guy named Shaun King, big tweeter, kind of a leader out there. His next demand is that all statues, stained glass windows, or pictures of Christ Jesus, the founder of the Christian faith. All of those statues, pictures, stained glass windows that depict Jesus Christ as a Caucasian, as having light skin, of being of any skin color except Arab, must be torn down and destroyed. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but this is not like some, kind of outlier guy. This is a main figure in the Black Lives Matter movement, now talking about destroying the religious symbolism of the most prominent religion in America, Christianity, saying that you can't have stained glass windows, statues, pictures, paintings of Christ if Christ Jesus is portrayed as a white person. That this is justified. His language justified. Protester, says he, rioters are justified in destroying the symbols of the church because Christ Jesus is a symbol of repression if he was painted or depicted in any way as a white person, because that's not what he was. This is Shaun King talking about Jesus Christ as a white supremacist. It is a tool of white supremacism to portray Jesus as a white person. And I'm going to wrap up this very lengthy first 5 by saying this. You have to understand that this Black Lives Matter movement, the organized Marxist, anti-American, destroy America movement, is entirely different from the reality and the fact that, of course, individuals matter. Individual Black lives matter. Individual lives of every skin color matter. Individual lives of everyone matter. You have to be able to make the distinction, to make the point, to understand BLM, Antifa, Marxist, communist, socialist, left, they're all trying to destroy America. It's okay for everyone in America to say, we reject that. You can't do that here. We reject what you stand for. We reject everything you stand for. And we, of course, agree that we always have to be working toward a more perfect union. We always have to investigate instances of police brutality. We always have to try to improve race relations in our country. We always have to try to work toward a better America. We can do that, but never give in to what the left is trying to do, because there won't be an America left if we don't stop them. There won't be an America left. So you have Shaun King saying, let's just tear down, let's just go ahead and tear down statues. They're going to start attacking churches now. Would that be enough to wake some Americans up? Because I fear, I'll tell you folks, and wrapping up this very lengthy first 5, I fear is that there are some people in our country a little bit slow on the uptake, realizing what is actually happening. There are too many people, elected officials, people who are cowering because the Twitter mob might come and get them. The Twitter mob, the radical left Democrat media mob is going to glom on to them next, going to label them a racist, going to label their business a racist, try to drive them out of business, intimidate them. And it's easier for too many people to give in to the mob. It's easier for people to give in to the mob, say, okay, fine, don't attack me, tell me what I have to do. Okay, I have to take down all the paintings in our church. Okay, I have to get rid of our stained glass windows. I mean, at what point are people going to recognize this leftism that we are seeing argued by Black Lives Matter movement is not about fixing race relations, is not about anything other than destroying the very identity, the whole culture and identity of America. So God bless President Trump for speaking up this morning, saying they arrested people in Lafayette Park. He has told people around the country this has to stop, this destruction has to stop. And I'll tell you one more thing, folks. You can get police to arrest people, to bring charges against them because they spray painted a George Washington statue or they tumbled over a Christopher Columbus statue. But even if you arrest those people and charge them, and prosecute and convict and send them to jail, you haven't even really begun to solve the problem of fixing all the hatred for America that has been taught by the left to our country for decades now. We have a long row ahead of us trying to deal with that. And that, my friends, is today's very lengthy First Five.